Hello friends! Today we're going on an amazing journey with a man named Jonah. Our story begins a very long time ago. Jonah was a good man who often listened for messages from God. He was what people called a prophet, which is a special kind of messenger. One day, a very important message came just for him. God spoke to Jonah and gave him a big important job to do. This wasn't just any job, it was a task that would take a lot of courage and a lot of heart. Jonah listened carefully as God explained what he needed him to do. The message was clear and direct, a special assignment meant only for Jonah. God wanted Jonah to travel to a great city called Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was a very large and busy place, but the people there weren't being very kind to one another. They had forgotten how to be good neighbors and how to live with love in their hearts. God saw this and was sad. He wanted to give the people of Nineveh a chance to change their ways. So he asked Jonah to go there and deliver a warning. Jonah was supposed to tell them that they needed to start being kind and fair, or their city would face big trouble. It was a serious message for a serious problem, a chance for an entire city to start over. This job sounded very difficult to Jonah. He thought about the people of Nineveh and felt a little scared. They were not his people, and he worried they would not listen to him. He imagined they might be mean to him or laugh at his message. The thought of going all that way to a strange city to tell people they were doing things wrong felt overwhelming. Jonah started to have second thoughts. Instead of feeling brave, he felt his courage start to shrink. He wondered if there was some way, any way at all, that he could get out of doing this very big and scary job that God had given him. Instead of preparing for his long walk to Nineveh, Jonah started thinking of ways to go in the opposite direction. He let his fear make the decision for him. He thought that if he could just get far enough away, maybe God would forget about the job or ask someone else to do it. So, Jonah made a choice. It wasn't the brave choice or the right choice, but it was the choice he made in that moment of fear. He decided he was not going to Nineveh. He was going to run away. This one decision would lead Jonah on an adventure bigger and wilder than he could ever have imagined. With his mind made up, Jonah hurried down to the nearest seaport, a busy place called Joppa. The air was filled with the smell of salt and fish, and the sounds of sailors shouting and waves crashing against the docks. He looked around at all the tall ships with their big sails, ready to travel across the wide blue sea. Jonah was looking for a specific ship, one that was going as far away from Nineveh as possible. He found a large wooden ship that was getting ready to sail to a faraway place called Tarshish. Tarshish was in the complete opposite direction of Nineveh. It was the perfect place to hide. Jonah quickly found the captain of the ship and paid the fare to become a passenger. He didn't tell anyone who he was or why he was in such a hurry to leave. He just wanted to get on that boat and sail away before anything could stop him. As he stepped onto the wooden deck, he might have felt a little bit of relief. He was getting away. He watched the sailors untie the thick ropes and hoist the giant sails. The ship slowly pulled away from the land, and Jonah watched the shore get smaller and smaller. He went down below the deck, found a quiet corner and tried to rest, thinking his problem was solved. But you can't really run away from your responsibilities, can you? Out on the open water, the sky began to change. The bright sunny day turned dark and gray. The calm blue water turned into a churning, angry sea. A powerful storm came out of nowhere. The wind howled and ripped at the sails, and massive waves crashed over the sides of the boat, tossing it back and forth like a toy. The sailors were very experienced, but they had never seen a storm this fierce. They were terrified. They believed that such a terrible storm must have a supernatural cause, that someone had made the heavens angry. The sailors did everything they could to save the ship. They threw their cargo overboard to make the boat lighter, hoping it would help them stay afloat. They prayed to their own gods, asking for the storm to stop. But nothing worked. The storm only grew stronger and more dangerous. The captain realized they needed to find out who on the ship was causing this trouble. They decided to cast lots, which was an old way of making a choice to find an answer. Each man, including Jonah, took a lot. And when they were all revealed, the lot fell to Jonah. Everyone turned and looked at him. They knew he was the reason for the storm. The sailors all gathered around Jonah, their faces filled with fear and wonder. "Who are you?" they asked. "Where do you come from? What have you done to cause this terrible storm to come upon us?" Jonah knew he could not hide the truth any longer. His plan to run away had failed in a very big way. He stood up and spoke honestly. He told them that he was a follower of the one true God, the God who created the land and the sea. He confessed that he was running away from a job God had given him, and he knew that this storm was his fault. He had brought this danger upon all of them. The sailors were even more afraid when they heard this. They had been battling the wind and the waves, but Jonah told them they were really up against the power of God. "What should we do to you to make the sea calm down?" they cried. They didn't want to hurt Jonah, but they also didn't want to perish in the storm. Jonah knew what had to be done. It was a very brave and selfless thing to say. "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he told them, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." He was willing to sacrifice himself to save the others. The sailors tried one last time to save the ship without harming Jonah. They rowed as hard as they could, trying to get back to the safety of the shore, but the storm was too powerful. The waves were relentless, and the wind pushed them further out to sea. They realized there was no other choice. They said a prayer, asking God to forgive them for what they were about to do. Then, with heavy hearts, the sailors picked Jonah up and tossed him over the side of the ship into the raging, stormy water. Instantly, as soon as Jonah hit the water, the wind stopped howling, and the great waves became calm. The sea was peaceful once more. Jonah was now all alone in the vast, deep ocean. He was sure this was the end, but God had not brought Jonah all this way to let him drown. God still had a plan for Jonah, and that plan included a very special helper. Just as Jonah was sinking beneath the waves, God sent a great fish to find him. This wasn't just any fish, it was a creature of incredible size, sent on a very specific mission. The great fish swam right up to Jonah and with one giant gulp, swallowed him whole. Jonah was no longer in the stormy sea but safe inside the belly of this amazing animal. It was dark and strange, but he was alive. Imagine what it must have been like for Jonah, inside the belly of that great fish. It was dark and he was surrounded by water and seaweed. It was certainly not a comfortable place to be. But in that strange, dark place, Jonah was safe from the sea. He had time to think about everything that had happened. He had run from God, put innocent sailors in danger, and nearly lost his own life. He realized that trying to run away from his problems had only created bigger ones. He had been given a very important job and he had let his fear get the best of him. He knew he had made a big mistake. For 3 days and 3 nights Jonah lived inside the fish. In that time, he did the one thing he should have done from the very beginning. He prayed. He spoke to God from the depths of the sea. It wasn't an angry prayer or a scared prayer anymore. It was a prayer of thanks. He thanked God for saving him from drowning in the ocean. He understood now that even when he had run away, God had not abandoned him. He had sent this great fish not to punish him but to save him. He promised God that he would be grateful and that he would keep the promises he had made. Jonah's prayer showed that his heart had changed. He finally understood the lesson God was trying to teach him. He said in his prayer that salvation comes from the Lord. He knew that only God could truly save him, not just from the sea, but from his own mistakes. He was ready to accept his mission and do what was asked of him. He was no longer running. He was ready to listen. His time in the darkness gave him a new perspective and helped him find his courage again. He was ready for his second chance if only God would grant it to him. After 3 days, God heard Jonah's prayer and knew that his heart was truly sorry. God spoke to the great fish, and the fish swam toward the shore. Right there on a sandy beach, the fish opened its mouth and safely spat Jonah out onto dry land. Jonah took a deep breath of fresh air and felt the warm sun on his skin. He was alive, he was safe, and he was free. He had been on an incredible adventure under the sea, but now his journey was taking a new turn. He looked around, not with fear but with a new sense of purpose. He was ready to do the right thing. And so, for the second time, the word of God came to Jonah. The message was the same as before. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. This time, Jonah did not hesitate. He didn't run. He didn't make excuses. He got up and started the long journey to Nineveh, just as God had asked. He had learned a very important lesson about obedience and trust inside the belly of the fish. He knew that God's plan was important and that he had a special part to play in it. His steps were now filled with purpose and courage instead of fear and doubt. When Jonah arrived in Nineveh, he saw that it was just as big and busy as he had imagined. He walked through the city streets and began to deliver the message God had given him. He called out to the people, "In 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown." It was a short, simple, and very serious warning. He expected the people to be angry or to ignore him, but something amazing happened. The people of Nineveh listened. From the most powerful king to the most humble servant, everyone heard Jonah's words and believed them. They knew they needed to change their ways. The king of Nineveh declared that everyone in the city should show they were sorry. He took off his royal robes and put on simple, rough clothes. He ordered everyone in the city, even the animals, to fast, which means they went without food to show their sincerity. The people prayed to God, asking for forgiveness. They stopped being mean and unfair to each other and started acting with kindness and compassion. They showed God that they were truly sorry for their actions and that they wanted to live in a better way. Their hearts were changed by Jonah's simple message. When God saw what the people of Nineveh did, how they had turned away from their unkind habits, he was filled with compassion. He saw their changed hearts, and he decided not to bring about the destruction he had warned them about. He gave them a second chance. This story teaches us a beautiful lesson about forgiveness. It shows us that everyone deserves a second chance, whether it's a prophet who runs away like Jonah or an entire city like Nineveh. God is always ready to forgive us when we are truly sorry and try to do the right thing, and that, my friends, is a rainbow of hope for us all.